Well, good evening, everybody. This is John with WIO Support, and I think we're doing kind of a solo flight. Got flight engineer with me, Artie.
Good evening, everybody.
So we've got kind of a skeleton crew, but doesn't mean we're gonna shortchange the conversation and the topics at hand. We heard your comments. We heard your desire for some deep dive into operations. So we've titled today's episode as Dial O for Operations. You may have picked up on a theme. We're kind of playing off of Hollywood movie names and just taking a little bit of our own twist to it. But yeah, we got Dial O for Operations for today. This is podcast number 17. This is coming to you on, what is today? August 22nd, 2024. Got a fantastic set of topics today to talk about. Artie and I are going to bounce back and forth our thoughts, our ideas, and what the future could hold for us. But let's see. In our news, we've got AI running for mayor. It's actually happening here in Cheyenne. Got some updates for us on that. We've got the data breaches that have been going on. Those are kind of frightening. We want to talk a little bit about that. What else we got?
Well, Microsoft has listened to their community and everyone that brought up issues with their recall service going live and decided that October is when they're going to make it go live for their insiders.
I actually would love to play with that, see what it can do. So I was actually at a customer site today and we were talking about it. Question came across his desk. Hey, do you remember this thing you did 2 years ago? How cool would it be if you had a personal assistant, digital assistant in your computer? You say, hey, yeah, what about that thing that happened 2 years ago? And it would tell you.
Well, I think with the
Could be
way the
frightening.
recall works, it would not, depending upon how you had it set up, it may not have records that go back that far because you can have it set up you can give the time frame according to what I was seeing. So if it's
Oh,
like two
yeah.
years ago, and the longer you've got it going back, the larger disk allocation you'll need.
Well, if there's one true fact in computers, hard drives keep getting bigger and bigger. 3 months would only be the beginning for recall. I know that's kind of the default, 90 days. But hey, we'll see where that goes. But yeah, recall might be a thing. Any other topics for discussion there, Artie?
Um, One that might be interesting, Netflix, one of their affiliates was hacked, and they released some of the shows that Netflix had, backdated for, later this year and part of next year. So, yeah, there's that.
That's awesome. Hackers will find a way in. That is probably one immutable law of IT. Hackers will get their hands on something eventually. Especially with a prize as big as that, getting the new episodes before they're released. That's just enticing. Well, let's hit our first one. Here in Cheyenne, we had a mayor run saying he was going to use ChatGPT for all of his decisions. Artie, do we have a article on this?
We do. If
What a
this,
fantastic idea to augment AI with a human avatar instead of the other way around.
well,
Just have the computers make the decisions for us.
I
I'm being
mean,
facetious for those that are reading the transcript on this.
okay, good, good. I was gonna say, I've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey.
As
So,
long as he opens the pod bay doors, I'm fine.
yeah, a man in Cheyenne, he wanted to run as a candidate who was um, using his own version of ChatGPT which he titled VIC, which is Virtual Integrated Citizen. And he was going to defer any decision making to the AI and let it use its vast array of data to spit back what to do in a situation. And he'd just sign on the dotted line. Um,
Never mind what AI hallucinates as truth.
yeah. Um,
I can't think of anything going wrong with that model.
well, in the gentleman's words, AI would be objective. It wouldn't make mistakes. It would read hundreds of pages of municipal minutiae quickly and understand them. It would be good for democracy. And as
Yeah,
the as
go
the
ahead.
author of this article on Cyber News states, um, if he's for real, um, he's wrong in thinking that AI chatbots do not make mistakes. They provide wrong answers and they also hallucinate. So,
Yeah, it's the wrong answers that scare me because it's confidently wrong.
oh,
You
very
ask it
much
a
so.
question and it will say it was absolutely correct. And then, there was that scandal a little bit ago with Google and their image generation tool. It was uh, putting in the wrong race for certain historical events, and it just would not generate what you wanted it to. And it's a setting on the developer side. It's not a setting we have control of. So, yeah, basically, this mayor candidate would be acquiescing all decisions to basically the developer of the AI. That's not a good route for us to go right now,
No,
or if
and
ever.
considering that he was using a derivation of ChatGPT and had one version already shut down for breaking the terms of service because GPT has in their terms of service nothing political can be you can't use this for political means.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, we don't want an automated political engine running. I mean, that would just be frightening. I can't stand the political ads that are running now. Can you imagine them running rampant with AI generating them?
I've seen the fake advertisements of, like the Will Smith eating a burger and fries made with AI.
Yeah.
That's just terrifying. I can't imagine what kind of terrors would come from political ads made in the same manner.
Mm, yeah. Well, speaking of recall and AI, I mean, how long have we had this tool around? I mean, like for general consumption, not just as a developer sandbox at Google or OpenAI.
Pretty sure that they became public in 22.
Yeah, when it hit, it was phenomenal. I mean, it kind of turned into the new buzzword. It was crypto for a while, and everybody's kind of abandoned that. Now it's AI. I'm just wondering what the next buzz is going to be because AI won't go away. Crypto never went away. It's just not the trendy thing to have anymore. And as they find ways of integrating it into our lives, it's going to be even better. But I think it's going to be more subtle than the tools we've got now.
So, just to put one final word on this mayoral candidate, um, for anyone that's wondering and doesn't want to go look up the article, he was in a primary and he lost the primary with about 5%, give or take, uh, of the winner's votes. He had 327 votes, and the guy that won had 6,800 votes. So,
Yeah, I'm actually relieved to hear that.
me too.
I mean, don't get me wrong; it would be cool to consult GPT or Grok or any of those others, but to just give control to the AI right now is, um,
You know what it
Anyways,
makes me think of? It
what's that?
makes me think of the automatic driving that they've got in some vehicles, and how, even after years of fixing certain problems, um, these cars will still hit people in crosswalks. They
Hmm.
will still, you know, stop when there's nothing in front of them because they're hallucinating something in front of them. So there are a lot of bad things that can come from letting the computer dictate over a human.
True. Well, speaking of computers dictating over humans, we had a bunch of data leaks happen, and possibly the biggest data leak that's ever happened. We talked about last week. I think they revised the number to 2.7 billion records. I heard it explained better. It's not 2.7 billion social security numbers. That's silly. It's 2.7 million lines on an Excel spreadsheet. So one person will show up 5 or 6 times, another person will show up twice, another person 20 times, just because of the circumstance. They pull credit, they get a house, they move, buy a car, whatever. One thing that did hit the radar is the public records services like Delete Me or Aura. They found that several of the records that were requested to be removed, like if I signed up with Delete Me, not endorsing Delete Me, I'm just saying if I got a service like that, they found that those records were not included in this latest breach. So kind of a win for those kinds of services. But what's your thoughts, Artie?
Oh, that's it's it'll take a while for it to catch up. Um, because I'm pretty sure Have I Been Pwned may not have the information available. I did come across an article from Krebs on Security that listed a website that you can check with. Trying to find it right now, um, to see if you've been uh, compromised. That's the word I'm looking for. Um,
I'll stop you there. There's a bunch of them out there. I don't want to point any of our viewers to any specific sites right now because there's a bunch of people popping up with incomplete data sets to check and other ones. And I'll say this for our viewers: if a site says, "Give me your name, give me your social security number, so I can check it against the database," be skeptical. I mean, don't just type in your information to see if it's out there because you just gave it to the site that you're on. So it's just, I would suggest to everybody listening in here right now, go lock your credit. It's called a freeze. Sign up with all 3 credit bureaus and put a freeze on your accounts right now. That way, even if somebody does decide to pull your credit or get a car in your name or take a loan in your name or buy a house in your name, your credit won't be available to them. You would have to go unlock it. Assume that you've been hacked and you got a better chance right now.
yeah, that's the advice from virtually every single article is um, go and uh, can I quote from this article?
Yeah, absolutely. Where's it from?
It's from Krebs on Security. And it is the point is, if you're an American who hasn't frozen their credit files and you haven't yet experienced some form of new account fraud, the ID thieves probably just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, it's our names aren't out there as just names. Our names, date of birth, social security number, mother's maiden name, previous address, previous states of residence, all that information is out in the wild now. And I'll call for it here and I'll call for it always. We need a better system. The idea that our credit is open and free to anybody saying that they're John is frightening. It should come
Now,
back to me to say, hey, did you really request this?
something that was also discussed in this article, um, this is probably going to be very damaging for that company. I'm just speculating here because of the way that they went about their security. Everybody was given the same password when they created an account, and they were expecting them to change it, and that is on the not on the customer side, that's on the administration side.
So
So,
every employee was given password 1, 2, 3 or something as simple
yeah,
and stupid
a
as that.
6-digit password, 6
Uh-huh.
character. So, yeah, and they stored the um,
Uh,
yeah,
I laugh because I mean, in the day and age where data is the new oil, and these are the data brokers, to have such a lax security posture is criminal. I mean, that's an indefensible position to be in. I mean,
it's
Artie, how long does it take a hacker to break through Web 2 wireless security?
um,
Couple minutes.
faster than it takes me to respond to that answer.
Well, I mean, you got to have a powerhouse of a system, but I mean, Linus Tech Tips, they showed how to do it with a portable system. And they
Six
also showed
character
that it's
password
totally
can be
possible
broken
without it.
with your phone. If you've got the right programs on your phone, you can break a 6 character password relatively quickly.
I think my Atari could break it fast.
Jaguar or Lynx?
2600. Oh, well, yeah, let's put a pin in that one because that actually is a great pivot point. So we're talking about security, we're talking about public records, we're talking about your personal safety. We're talking about companies that have a lax security posture. Well, what do you do if your equipment has a lax security posture? So let's get into our main subject of the night. Our episodes dial O for operations. Um, RD, do you know what operational technology is? OT.
Operational technology, that's the devices that effectively manage the networks or that they're basically in control of things that humans aren't in control of.
Uh, Fair enough. I won't say no because that's actually a correct answer. But OT is the box sitting beside the street, running that stoplight, keeping traffic flowing safe. OT is the controller that's sitting in the hostess plant, helping make Twinkies. OT is the technology that you use to operate those day in day out automated processes that has to work all the time. So like oil and gas. Um, is there too much pressure? Are the tanks full? Well, turn off the well and stop making oil. Um, in wastewater and freshwater plants for every municipality that's out there, how much chlorine do you put in the water? Well, you don't want a person sitting there 24/7 measuring and doing. You want a sensor in the water saying, what's the pH? What's the chlorine level? What's the salination levels? So it would respond to those conditions as the conditions change. OT is what helps the world run, the automated world that we've got now. So when we're talking security, 6-digit passwords, that's awesome. But some of these controllers were built with an idea towards this is going to be inside a secure building away from things and not connected to the internet. About 6 weeks ago, I think 6 weeks ago, Federal Trade Commission jumped in and said, unplug the OT from the internet now. There's 14,000 PLCs, those are programmable logic controllers. 14,000 are on the internet, and their passwords haven't changed from the defaults. Artie, what could possibly go wrong if you don't change the default password on a system that's controlling the fundamental operation of your company?
Well, let's use an example like water treatment, water control. Depending upon what access that device has, it could add more chlorine to the water than is admissible for human consumption. So that goes out, and you've got an entire place that gets, poisoned by too much chlorine. You've got, if it's on a dam, it could open the floodgates and
Mm-hmm.
release more water than should be released, possibly causing a flood. Alternately, it could, close the floodgates and, prevent them from opening when they reach a critical mass, which could cause a failure in the dam.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential. So because the controllers have a very weak password, and you can't change the password to something more complicated. Some of the controllers, I'm not going to call them out by name. Some of the ones that we work with, you're allowed a 3-digit username and 4-digit password, but the password is only numbers. Okay, so the security wasn't there. This is a lock on a door meant to keep the honest people out. To have a default password like 1234 is it allows your field team to do their job, but it also allows anybody else to come in and mess up that job. Because it's complicated to change passwords and distribute that information to people. People make the decision just keep the default because everybody knows it. If we lose it, we can look it up. If you plug it into the internet, then everybody can look it up, and anybody in the world can try and hack into it. But I don't know if it's hacking if you already know the password.
Or
It's not breaking and entering if the door is wide open.
I know I've been seeing in the news that there have been instances where water treatment plants and water facilities have been accessed, and they've basically been breached in European countries, in Middle Eastern countries, and it's not a good thing for anybody who's not supposed to be accessing that to access it.
No. I mean, this is in the public trust. This is, your SCADA system, which is scientific control. It's on the tip of my brain. If I say it, I'm going to say it wrong. Sensory control data acquisition. These systems run our lives, and we don't even know it. Now, one of the comments, and just to help with this, the software that's running this stuff is Windows based, sometimes Linux based. A comment I got on last week when we were putting out our public services and our announcements on our shorts and our reels. One of the comments was, "Don't run Windows updates; it will break your system." That came from somebody who is actually in the oil and gas and water treatment systems. He was saying, don't run it because that adds variability to the system. He's absolutely right. Artie, I got the chance to go behind the scenes in Las Vegas at the Star Trek experience. For a very brief period of time, they opened it up, and you could buy a ticket to go behind the scenes to see how it was all put together. You get to tour the sets, talk to the actors, look at how things are actually put together. Super, super cool. Although for me, it ruined it because I got a chance to go see the transporter room. I got to see how the magic worked before experiencing it firsthand. And so when I actually went through the ride a little bit later, I knew what was happening. It lost the magic, and I was so sad because I knew how it beamed me up. Anyways, walking through there, we found a computer running the shuttles. It was running Windows 3.1.
The software works.
That was the point. So if you write software in the day and age that you run the software and it works, where condition, yes, no, answer, true, false, that's not going to change. Running a Windows update will change how the drivers on the system work. It'll change how the kernel interprets programs. It could actually change the way your programming environment fundamentally affects the processor and all the connections to all your in that case, hydraulics or whatever else, the sensors. So you could run Windows updates on it, and the door might not open. The shuttle might take just a nosedive. Shuttle might not even fly. So why run a Windows update on a system that's working just fine?
Usually the updates for Windows come with security upgrades for if it's going to be online. It's like I've got a Windows 7 machine that I'm not going to connect to the internet, but I'm still going to use because it's got some useful programs on it. And I enjoy the interface on 7 better than 10 and 11. Don't get me started on 8. But
Yeah, go back to Vista. No,
did
no, no.
Vista
So
have did Vista have capacity for greater than, what is it, 6 gig on a hard drive?
yeah,
Okay. Because I know it was XP, I believe, that had the limitation on hard drive size past a certain, maybe it was memory
terabytes,
capacity.
2 terabytes.
Anyways,
Yeah, so the Windows updates would break the operational technology side of things. So I want to give a shout out to all those people that reached out to me, both public and private, and even caught me in the hallway and said, "Hey, just so you know, Windows updates is great, but it will break other things that you don't intend." So, yeah, Windows updates is good. All of us should run them. Windows updates is for those systems that are connected to the internet. You alluded to that just a second ago, Artie. If it's on the line, if it's ready to talk, it should be patched, it should be updated. But just like the FTC just said, disconnect from the internet. Yeah, that's great. Let's disconnect from the internet. Don't let it talk. And then a hacker can't get into an air-gapped system that's running flight controls for the Starship Enterprise.
and with air gaps, just there are ways to get past an air gap. The only issue is that none of them are functional to do what you need in the short amount of time and actually require being close to the machine in proximity, at least. At least everything that I've been reading about the air gap hacks, it's like you get like 3 bytes every minute,
Mm-hmm.
which, yeah.
Yeah, there's some interesting use cases out there that some there's even one where it blinks the keyboard keys, this num lock, scroll lock, and caps lock. There's fascinating ways of doing that.
Yep.
But when it comes to OT and getting the system air gapped, that's a start. But the problem we've got right now. So let's paint a picture. OT is designed to run an oil field. It's designed to run a manufacturing plant where they make let's say the cars. What's that?
Cars.
From start to finish, there's somebody with a dashboard that can look at it and see the progress of things as it goes through. That's all sensors and wires and communications and everything coming back to your controllers. That's great. You need that, but it should not be attached to the internet unless it has to. What the challenge we had years ago was everybody getting to the cloud. So for whatever reason, those SCADA data companies started aggregating the data into the cloud. Kills one problem, but creates another. Kills the problem of everybody being on the current version of your software. But like we just talked, you don't necessarily want to be on the latest, greatest version of the software without testing and making sure all the hydraulics, all the sensors, everything's working exactly how you want. But the problem it creates is everything is now connected to the internet by design. So if you go back a couple podcasts, we've got Atom Networks, the firewall, Atom 1, and it's more technically a security gateway, but I'm going to call it a firewall because all of us know what a firewall is. This security gateway allows you to control traffic better, and it's really the best chance. Having a firewall that manages traffic on your network getting out is 100% critical. Having it locked down between the cloud server and your field or your industrial equipment, that's absolutely mission critical. If your mission critical equipment can talk to google.com, you've got a problem. I'm waiting for Flight Engineer to jump in on some of this.
I'm listening. This is very informative.
So if your PLC needs to get to a time server on the internet, you're doing it wrong. If your PLC needs to get to DNS on the internet, you're doing it wrong. Nothing you do on the OT side of things should ever have to talk to the internet. But if it does, that connection has got to be locked down 100%. No margin for error. And what some of the scans out there have shown is there's a lot of these pieces of equipment sitting online. Now, why would there be that kind of a slip in security?
Well,
one of the things go for it.
The thing that comes to mind is convenience. You've got people that want to be able to not, drive 20 miles to get to the location to check the system. But at the same time, you could have that on a private network that is accessible from locations instead of using the internet as the go-between.
Well, how many of us have a phone? How many of us use our phone to check the critical systems, the alarm at our house, the alerts for a Ring doorbell?
Don't get me started on Ring.
My point is, you're absolutely right. People want to go home and then get status updates if there's a problem on their equipment. So you can't have a completely orphaned out and an isolated OT environment, because if that operation ever stops, let's take wastewater. If that wastewater tank gets too full, you want the system to do something. And if there's any errors, it needs to say a human needs to come and get involved. A decision needs to be made that is not in my logic. Come fix this. So it can't be completely disconnected. There has to be an out call. So you want that out call to be a one-way direction, right?
So
Where it
in,
got a little off the rails. Go ahead.
so in other words, it would be like if there's an issue, it needs to be able to like send an email to somebody that there's an issue going on, or um, the dreaded SMS message to somebody's phone saying, "Hey, um, I've got a problem here. Please come fix it," instead of back and forth interface for that.
Yep. Well, let's use this the wastewater, the sewer water, as kind of an example. I think all of us can understand how not good it would be if that tank overflows. So you would have, and you know we've set these systems up before. You would have a tank, and its level gets up to like 80%. It'll send an SMS, say, "Hey, alert! It's full, or it's getting full. It's 80% full." Whatever you want that message to be. It gets to 90%. It sends an SMS and sends a voice call saying, "Hey, tank is getting full." It gets to the 100% mark and it starts shutting equipment off. But you also need to know that that equipment's getting turned off so it can reach out to multiple people with text, voice, email, whatever alerts you can. You need those kinds of redundancies and protections and redundancies. So when you run into those, I love that. When you run into those situations, you want to make sure that those call outs make it to the decision makers that can fix the problem. That's why you've got emergency techs on call throughout the night. So if a server fails, great. Server's down, whatever. These PLCs cannot go down. They're always on, they're always working, they're always doing their thing. So they've got a very reduced operation set. And if value gets out of range, it makes a call out to somebody. Absolutely critical for all operational technology. And that's where the internet became a thing. Let's have it connect to the internet so that everybody can see things. And then scratching the head, I got a better idea. How about we let people get on the internet to fix the problem? Because if I see that the tank's getting full, I'm going to say, tell you what, slow down the flow over here, open up a backup tank or something so I can get on my phone, press buttons, and now I've solved the problem. I'll go in the morning and fix whatever's going wrong.
Again, convenience. And from, I think, at least one of the stories that I saw, they're able to spoof the all clears for things like that, so that the system was not reporting that it was getting full. And if the system starts shutting down, it's going to take a lot to get the system back up and running after a complete shutout like that. So if they disable the warning systems, a threat actor gets in and decides, hey, I don't want this tank to send out any messages when it hits 100% capacity. I just want it to shut down. It
Yeah.
it causes problems, and if it's wastewater, that is wastewater that's not getting treated, that is going to sit there and stagnate and become worse.
Oh, we know we don't have to paint that picture for our viewers. Everybody knows what that could possibly mean.
So
If it's not dealt with appropriately, it makes a manageable system unmanageable or very difficult to clean up. So, and the same thing applies to the oil field. Same thing applies to food manufacturing. Same thing applies to car manufacturing. If they're not driving the car off the end of the line should stop moving forwards. I mean that that could be a fantastic wreck at the end of a line if you don't drive the car off. Just have the system keep pushing more cars into it.
I'm sending more trains.
It's You can do some great things with OT, and if it's done wrong, you can cost millions of dollars very quickly. The problem is there's hackers out there that now know how to do this. And I mean, ransomware is a thing, right? Is people are hacking in to find ways of extorting money from people. Some people just want to cause problems and do it for personal gain. Other people just want to cause problems for whatever fun they get out of that. There's a couple control or hacker tools that were released a while back. We got a hold of them. We didn't get a hold of them. The world got a hold of them before they were actively used. It's In Control and Pipe Dream were the two that were first on the scene. It's one of the rare times where the security experts out there, the security industry, got a hold of the hacker tools before there was a known use of those tools. So we had a chance to catch it before it went bad. But the problem is these PLCs were not designed to connect to the internet, but we connected it to the internet anyways.
Forgive my ignorance. What is a PLC? I don't think you said.
Programmable logic controller. It
Okay, you did
is,
say it.
yeah, and think of it like a Raspberry Pi. It's a very lightweight computer, but you can plug in blinking lights and you can put in door sensors. You can put in all those little smart home features onto a Raspberry Pi. And so when a garage door opens, it turns on the garage light. When somebody walks down a hall, it turns on the hall light and warms up, your coffee in the morning or something. You can have it do automated little things.
Okay.
So PLC is an industrial piece that does the exact same thing. It's just without a Windows or Linux operating system. It is purely its own OS at the firmware level. It allows great control over your OT environments. But again, when you blend OT and IT, these are completely different worlds. IT, we care about managing IP addresses. We care about managing traffic from a computer to a server and from a server to the internet, from the computer to the internet, and block that with firewalls and enable it with rules in the firewall. We care about deep packet inspection to see, is there a virus inside this? OT, they care, is the tank sensor plugged in and correct and responding all the time? Is the flow meter showing how much water is flowing through a pipe? Is that giving me true and accurate information? Is it calibrated correctly? Those are all run with wires, sometimes wireless, back to the PLC, and it's hardlined every time. So your PLC could have 150 lines running out to different sensors. They call them instruments. They can go out and see the situation. So you only need like 5 or 6 sensors to maintain an oil pump. Everything runs after that. And if something goes out of spec in those sensors, then you know something went wrong and you got to fix it. So OT has home runs running for all the instruments back to the PLC and doing all that. So there's an understanding when you're putting OT together how things work. And I don't want to say it's more complicated. I want to say it's differently complicated than your advanced networking with routed and routing protocols.
So to like bring it down to a different level, it would be like trying to get a 1995 Windows machine to talk with a 1995 Apple machine. They each
No.
do their own things properly, but they do not necessarily mesh well together.
I'll go with a different analogy because
Okay.
that one's a little nuanced. I would say it's like a diesel engine versus a gas engine.
Okay.
So you could have a diesel mechanic work on a gas engine, and they could probably get it. But it's a little different, and it's going to act and function different. Same thing the other way around. Gas mechanic working on a diesel engine, they can get there, but there's some fundamental understandings of how the tech works that if you don't know it, you could make a mistake without knowing it.
All right.
It's two different worlds. And there was a push for a while to get all the instruments, all the sensors into an IT IP space so that everything could be routed and controlled through an IT system. Um, and that just adds more complication to things.
That to me
If I've
opens
got
up the doors to so many issues because who is going to be the one that is in charge of that IT program? Because there are at least a dozen that I've seen in the past couple of years that create OT devices, and I mean Siemens does one. Um, I can't think of any other companies right now, but they have their own software that they've developed for each one of these different programs or each one of these different devices, and very rarely have I seen any instances of somebody using a different brand of device once they decide we're going to be installing these devices here, because the devices don't necessarily cross communicate because the operating systems are written in different languages in different
the
needs.
different protocols.
Yes.
And that's the other thing is there's like 7 different communication styles of instruments to PLCs. Not going to blur everybody's eyes by naming them. But those instrument interface connection types, somebody's trying to standardize it and say, make it all Ethernet. Power to them. Standardize something across the board onto one platform. I'm not going to say that's a bad goal, but I will say that you're adding more layers to the complication that's already in place. It's like old telephones. We used to be able to pick up a phone, dial number, and we get to where we're going. Now we pick up a phone, we dial a number, but it's no longer copper lines, it's going voice over IP. So that number then gets translated into digital packets that gets an IP address that goes to a server on the internet, that goes to another server on the internet, and then it gets transferred into copper lines to talk to the person I'm trying to call. It works, but it's added more layers of complication to the problem. Does it help? Maybe. But standardizing around IP is not necessary. As a matter of fact, it adds fragility to the system. How many people have had a network switch die? You don't want a network switch dying when it's your tank level sensors saying, is the tank getting full?
So the more devices that you have between point A and point B, it complicates it, and that's another piece that can fail, that you don't want or need failing.
Exactly. So if you think of yourself as the PLC, you are thinking about it, and your fingers are the instruments you're touching, you're feeling, you're doing. You don't want to put gloves and those little extender gripper things that you reach for the floor, extend your reach by 3 feet or whatever it is. You don't want to use those to interface with the world. You want to use your hands. And you definitely want to make sure that that instrument that is working 100% of the time and has the best chance of getting the data back to the brain, the decision maker. So it's a different way of doing things. And I'm not saying running IP is wrong. I'm saying it just adds more details and more failure points in the communication path from sensor to brain.
I can see a lot of things with that would just potentially be an issue. Like if there's a protocol that it follows for, if a sensor stops working, it sends a certain command back. And if that command gets filtered by a router or something else that's in between, because, it's something that has never happened before, then, that
Well,
command's not going to get back, and you're not going to get an alert light that says, hey, this is an issue.
and if you get into critical infrastructure, we're talking waterways and stuff. you do want that information to go through a firewall to decide, is this valid traffic, or is this somebody on the network that's trying to mimic or spoof something? The number one way a hacker is able to get into a computer is by sending malformed information through the network to see what will happen. If the firewall catches that and blocks that from the touch screen that's in front of the whatever they're working on, the oil pump or the wastewater or the food processing plant. If that touchscreen has command of the brain, great, but it should be a filter between those two to make sure that somebody didn't plug in their laptop or a thumb drive.
Or a Dreamcast.
There's more instances of that happening than I care to admit. It is frightening when the Dreamcast got hacked and turned into a network hacking tool.
Yep. I remember when that happened. It was people wanted them for the wrong reasons after that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for the viewers, you take the old video game console, you reinstall it with Linux, and it's now a computer on the network. If you've got remote access to that computer and you're an adversary to that network, you have a device behind the firewall that can do whatever you want.
And it's
And
one of
nobody
those
would
ones that,
suspect it because it's a video game.
yeah. And from my understanding, it was also you just connect it, turn it on, walk away.
Yep. Plug it in, power it on, walk it off. Yeah, and that's the risk in OT environments. That's why you want physical security. That's why you want nobody around your equipment that you don't have your eyes on. There should always be cameras looking at things, checking the access points, watching the equipment as you're working on it.
I recall seeing something about one company's process for letting people through was, you go through metal detector, and then if you've got a thumb drive, you have to surrender the thumb drive before you go through into the secure area. Any yeah, anything like that just is given to security so that you can't accidentally load something in that shouldn't be on the mainframe.
So let's talk that one real fast. Do you remember Stuxnet?
No.
This one was a big story when it hit because it was the most sophisticated, coordinated attack on an adversary. So you had, I won't call out names because I don't want to screw up the algorithms that are watching the show with us and deciding whether we're good guys or bad guys. You had an adversary country working on a nuclear program that was not okay. Well, we couldn't go in with a military option. We went in with a cybersecurity option. Now they had air gapped their system. Again, without getting too elegant on this, you had a PLC and you had industrial equipment running inside their facility. It was air gapped. It was not connected to the internet, so we can't get to it. Stuxnet was the virus that was written that got past the air gap. Artie, do you know what the delivery method was for Stuxnet?
Part of me wants to say it was Sonic, but I don't think so. Of
Thumb drives.
course, I was just talking about them.
Yep. You drop thumb drives in the parking lot. What is this? Hey, it's a thumb drive. You plug it in. Cool. There's nothing on it. I got a free thumb drive. Or cool, there's somebody's resume or something. Looks like I got a free thumb drive and I've got somebody's resume. Well, on that thumb drive was the virus. And it was a very, very well-crafted virus. Like some of the most intense black magic tools were used to make these things. It contains 6 0 days. it was designed to attack specifically the PLCs and the controllers, or the speed controllers. It called them out by serial number, and if the virus saw that the serial number didn't match, it didn't apply. It was tailored to that specific site, and anybody else in the world that would have got it, their serial numbers didn't match, so it wouldn't have any ill effect to their PLCs. But what it would do is it would go in, rewrite the PLC to say, keep the number you think you should have. If it's 1,000 RPM, it's 1,000 RPM. But it would actually spin the device to like 10,000 or 20,000 RPM and make it physically destroy itself. And the only indication anything's wrong is when the smoke's let out of the system. Because all the indications on the main board are that it's running within spec, and none of the sensors are tripping alarms and causing shutdowns. So
Scary.
OT is very powerful. It should be air gapped. It should be isolated. It shouldn't talk to the internet. But if it has to, you have got to take major precautions on an IT level to prevent that system from ever reaching anything but the one server on the internet that needs. And even that's too much. So anyways, OT, it's a good thing. We need it. It's a critical part of our lives. And we can't live without it. So for heaven's sake, if you've got one on the internet, take it off now. If you've got remote access, if you've got TeamViewer, Splashtop, LogMeIn, Go to My PC, any of those tools, connecting you to your SCADA system, stop using it now. You've got to do something different. I cannot express how dangerous it is to have those systems exposed to the internet. But I could rant on that for hours if you let me.
We've only got about 3 minutes left.
About 3 minutes left. I think we've talked that one pretty good. Do you have any questions, Artie? I might be able to answer them in the last couple minutes.
Well, I don't think could be answered in that short amount of time. They're like multi-step questions that I need the answer before I can respond type thing.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Keep those questions, write them down, but I'm also going to invite our viewers. Anybody that's watching, please write your questions down. If we don't know the answers, we've got people that we do know that have expertise in these OT systems. And we can might even bring one or two on podcasts in the future if there's an interest. So let us know if there's an interest by commenting below and letting us know what that question could be or what you'd like to hear next. Until next time, I'm going to wrap this up and say I'm John.
I'm Marty.
And we're here to help however you need. Stay tuned. We're only going to get better at this. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one.